brought together and made to act harmoniously. Magic is spiritual wisdom. Arcane knowledge misapplied is sorcery. Manly P. Hall, 33rd degree Freemason, eminent scholar of Freemasonry, says ceremonial magic is the ancient art of invoking and controlling spirits by a scientific application of certain formulae. A magician enveloped in sanctified vestments and carrying a wand inscribed with hieroglyphic figures could, by the power vested in certain words and symbols, control the invisible inhabitants of the elements and of the astral world. While elaborate ceremonial magic of antiquity was not necessarily evil, there arose from its perversion several false schools of sorcery, or black magic. In Egypt, the black magicians of Atlantis continued to exercise their superhuman powers until they had completely undermined and corrupted the morals of the primitive mysteries. Thus, black magic dictated the state religion and paralyzed the intellectual and spiritual activities of the individual by demanding his complete and unhesitating acquiescence in the dogma formulated by the priestcraft. This was from the secret teachings of all ages. And we are still in this place today. Now, there is a dark side to the Kabbalistic tree of life, and it is known as the Quillapoth, and is considered shells. It's also called excrement, or feces. And some believe that it is the souls of those that died insane. They have names like the two contending forces, or the Hegelian dialectic, the burners, or what they do at Bohemian Grove, the liar or poison of God, and even Lilith, the queen of night and demons. Now, the Quillapoth have a number, and the number of the Quillapoth is 66, and in Hebrew, 6 equals V. So what you have is VV, or W. So W actually is, well, by their own definition, excrement. And you'll notice here the Hierophant card in the Tarot, which is the V card. And you'll see the symbol of Mercury and Venus, and once again, back to the hermaphroditic symbols. Or even the Volkswagen logo is actually two V's interlaced, making a third V, or 666. Have you ever wondered why Phillips 66 is called such? So, in the blockbuster movie of Hollywood, The Revenge of the Sith, the latest of the Star Wars, they announce Execute Order 66. And what you'll find is that this movie was designed to express the decline and fall of the American Republic and being raised into an empire. And when the Emperor stood up and said, Execute Order 66, all hell broke loose and they started to kill all the good ones. And if it wasn't for the mind-controlled, cloned army, none of this would have happened. But upon Order 66, or W, they started to eradicate everyone. But what is it that makes people so angry about all of this? I went down to try and figure out what they were up to. And I got down to the Guidestones. Now, they're just sitting on a little dirt road there in Elberton, Georgia. They weren't much to look at from the road, but I found they had some curious anomalies. So I pulled up and gave it a look. There were certainly curious features to this thing, and I started thinking maybe there was more to it. So I gave it the once-over. Now, the first thing I noticed was that the Guidestones were surrounded by holly wood, or holly plants. And this is a Celtic symbol of death and resurrection. And I found this symbol popping up often, as you will see throughout this talk. So the holly wood has been used to enchant us. It is an enchantment that's been placed, and as you see here, this guy, this fall guy, the original fall guy, was projected into our consciousness. And so now we have people dressing up as this dark slasher killer hero to protest and try to keep the Masonic order in power. How curious is that? Well, I happen to notice that the Georgia Guidestones were created on March 22nd, which just happens to equal 322, which is the number of the Skull and Bones Society. And these Guidestones are put into 8 different languages. And what you will find is that language has frequency. So when you look at a language, you have to see it hieroglyphically and also archetypically. It is not simply a language, but a method that has been crafted by these magicians to express numbers, symbols, and ideas. They aren't simple words. And the very tones that are emanated, the very frequencies that the language creates, has secret and hidden powers. Now notice the Egyptian hieroglyphs. I see a flying saucer and then an owl. I find that rather curious. But also the ancient Sumerian Babylonian form is represented on these Guidestones. So could it be that there is more to this thing? Well, let's keep looking. Now I kept noticing that there were these stains around each of the stones, and I really wondered what that was. Well, my answer came in the form of an email. Well, now we know how the common man feels about the Guidestones. But why are they so mad? Well, let's see what these things say. Maintain humanity under 500 million people. Well, that's a lot of people missing. Guide reproduction wisely? Unite humanity with a living new language. Or creating a world court to resolve international laws. These things seem to be ideas that could be okay if it weren't for the fact that we're being ruled by sorcerers. Now I noticed that it said leave room for nature, leave room for nature. And that this Guidestone was also astronomically aligned, set up to watch the sun and other astronomical features. But I found this curious, that if they were so involved and so curious about the time and what it was that perhaps they were thinking about. As here we have all the astronomical features, the sponsor of a small group of men, but they placed this time capsule to be opened on when? The end of time, perhaps. This made me think of the Cross of Henday, which is a symbol that has been deciphered by Falconelli back in 1926 in his book, The Mystery of the Cathedrals, which he found that this thing says, O cross, our only hope, and equated these symbols to a revelation about a double catastrophe that was going to strike the earth with fire. And some believe he even deciphered a safe place to land. But these symbols on the base of the Henday cross are all equated with the tarot, and they actually end with the Last Judgment. Now, the author of these Guidestones was known as R.C. Christian, and it says a pseudonym. And once again, either these guys are very not paying attention or they're intentionally making these mistakes, just as the Cross of Henday had mistakes that gave Falconelli the clues he needed. Now, Sir Francis Bacon was one of the Rosicrucians, and R.C. Christian is code for Christian Rosicrucians, the founder of the Rosicrucian order. And as Shakespeare, or as he was known as Spear Shaker, he actually crafted the English language. So it is these high Illuminati, occult, esoteric Rosicrucians and other orders that actually manufacture our very reality, including our languages, our ideas of government, and everything else that we call the real world. So when I got to Denver and I was looking at the Masonic Lodge that's directly across the street from the Capitol, not only did I see their double-headed eagle, which is the symbol of the Hegelian dialectic,